You're listening to Three Kitchens Podcast, hosted by your favorite home cooks, Erin Walker and Heather Dyer. Join us for inspiration and a new recipe every Tuesday.
Welcome to Three Kitchens, everybody. Nice to be with you. We're actually continuing. It's almost a little bit like part two of barbecue. We had part one sort of a couple weeks ago. We talked with Ryan Sanderson about barbecue competition and being a competitor. And then this week, we're looking at kind of the other side of the competition scene, and that is the judging with our guest, Avery Cochrane.
Yeah, how lucky are we to know people on both sides of the Alberta barbecue competition scene?
I know.
It is so cool. I love how this world has opened up to us. It's just fantastic.
And it really is a world that we were not familiar with. This whole barbecue culture and barbecue competition.
Yeah.
It's really fun. I love that anytime people get together like that in a good spirited competition to try to outdo each other with amazing food. It's so great.
Yeah. And with our conversation with Ryan, I mean, there was so much we talked about, but there's still so much more to talk about. And even after this one with Avery, I realized we never even touched on sort of whole animal or whole hog barbecue, which is also this other huge piece of the barbecue story. So it's really incredible how much there really is out there and all the things that you can do, you know, cooking in this style.
Yeah. And if you're interested to learn more, definitely check out Ryan's podcast, Eat More Barbecue. Let's talk a little bit about Avery before we get into this. So Avery is a cook. His background, I think he said a Red Seal chef.
Yep. He's gone to culinary school and got his Red Seal for cooking. Yeah.
And he is an amateur barbecuer. He kind of took it up in his backyard. He's got his smokers and his pizza oven and his grill, and you know, he's like got all the things that you'd expect of someone who's going to talk about barbecue. And then a couple of years ago, he decided that he wanted to learn about how to be a judge for barbecue competitions, and he saw there was a course happening, and so he went and took the course and jumped right into judging on the Alberta barbecue circuit. So I think there's 5 barbecue competitions that he speaks about, and really quite interesting to hear the scale of these things. Were you as surprised as I was to hear there's like 30 judges?
Yeah, like at first he was like, oh, there's 6 judges at a table in the judging tent, and I was like, oh yeah, that seems reasonable.
Yeah.
But then he was like, and then there's 6 tables of 6 judges, and I was like, whoa, wait, what?
I know.
I started scaling up in my mind, like just how big these events are. And with everyone cooking and all their equipment, I can't wait to go and see one of these come barbecue competition season. We're going to have to do some live reporting.
Oh, that'd be fun. Live from Porkapalooza.
Oh, I can't wait.
It's changed its name, but I love that name. And then we talked specifically about barbecuing ribs.
It's something that we realized we didn't touch on at all, and it's something that I do frequently. I think you're also...
Not like this, though.
Not like this, no. And so Avery gave us the list of ingredients for the rub that he likes, and we made up how to use it. I made it,
winging it kind of stuff.
Yeah. What do I feel like today? So I took his list of ingredients and made a rub and barbecued some pork back ribs. Then I also made some cornbread for the side from a recipe that I like to use because I feel like you can't have ribs without cornbread. And then I also made my own barbecue sauce for the ribs. So far, my son has always liked my barbecue sauces, but my husband's always been like, nah, not my favorite. But this time I finally got oh yeah, I hope you wrote down this recipe. I really liked this sauce.
And did you?
And I did.
It down? Oh, good. Because sometimes that happens and you're like, oh shit.
I did go back and write it down post.
Oh, good.
So we've got a really great rib recipe.
Did you use the smoking pellets? I didn't ask.
I did not use the smoking pellets because I only used my barbecue for the sear at the end. I slow cooked them in my oven and then took them out. I coated them in the sauce that I made and then seared them on the barbecue for that finish where you get that sticky burnt.
Mm-hmm. Which you can also do under your broiler if that's what you've got.
Exactly. So ideally, I would want to smoke these on a smoker for the 3 or 4 hours rather than cooking them in my oven. But because I don't have a smoker and I'm not ready to cross that line yet, he gave us a really great way to do this in the oven. So that was my method for cooking them low and slowed. I need to know how you thought about these
Okay,
ribs.
I was waiting for you to ask. I'm like, when do you want to
Heather,
know
can
what
you
I
just
got?
tell me already?
Oh, these were delicious. So good.
I
So
had to
good.
get them out of the house that night.
Yeah, you like popped up at my door. I'm like, oh, Erin's here. She's like, I had to get these ribs out of my house or we're going to eat them. Yeah, I thought you did a fantastic job. I can't wait to see what the rub recipe ended up being. And the sauce. Really yummy, yummy, yummy. And the cornbread.
Oh, yeah.
I felt like it needed something. To me, it was just maybe because the ribs had so much flavor. The cornbread was, I know it's just a side.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I was like looking for, I don't know, more corn flavor maybe? I don't know.
Oh,
And it's
interesting.
not like I'm some great cornbread connoisseur and
Well, no, because
you know.
you have your own cornbread recipe that you like making.
Well, I have one that a friend of mine passed on to me. It's a cornbread you make in the skillet on the barbecue.
Yes.
And I thought it was quite good, but honestly, I've only made it once and it was last summer and now I couldn't compare the two. I couldn't tell you.
Come on, that's what you're here for, Heather.
I know.
That's why
I'll
you
have
get
to make
paid
it
the
again.
big bucks.
Right. I'm paid so much. I'll have to make it again and compare. I would love to know what our listeners, if they make this, what they think.
I'd love to know everybody else's because it seems like there are a lot of different variations on cornbread out there. And we're even going through a recent cookbook that I found another recipe that was using boiling water when you mix up the batter. And I thought, oh, that's interesting because I think that somehow must change what's happening in your dough.
Oh,
So I'd like to
interesting,
try
yeah.
that one too. Like there are so many different variations on cornbread out there. It'll be fun to see. It's a pretty plain bread. It's more just a sweet plain. We use it to soak up all the sauce.
Yeah. I didn't have a ton of sauce in my little sample of ribs.
I don't think I put extra sauce
No.
in, did
So
I?
maybe with sauce with the cornbread, it might have been different. I was basically eating the cornbread like on its own.
Right.
And so on its own, cornbread is not really all that exciting, I guess, right?
I'm sorry I didn't put more sauce for you. I had
That's
it.
okay. That's
Dang.
all right. Now I have a question.
'Kay.
Did you or did you not remove the silver skin from the ribs?
Never
You did not.
have.
Interesting. You're going to hear more about that later in the episode. We had a little discussion with Avery about it.
Yeah. And he gave us the freedom to go and do whatever we want with our meat. I should try this recipe again and do the skin off to see what I notice because I've honestly never taken the skin off the back of my ribs. Well, this one's a winner.
Yummy.
So enjoy our conversation with Avery, and I hope to see everyone down at these barbecue competitions over the summer.
And don't forget to check out Avery and Lena's new podcast, 90s Tunes. Check them out.
Welcome, Avery, to Three Kitchens podcast. We are happy to have you back here again. How you been?
I've been great. Thanks for asking. I'm doing well.
Good.
Excellent. And the last time we talked, you had told us about how you were getting into judging barbecues. What gave you this idea to get into this barbecue judging and how did you go about that?
It's something I wanted to do for a while. Like I have a love for food and barbecue is just awesome. And I saw an ad years ago to become a barbecue judge and I just never followed through with it. And so about 2 years ago, I finally, in 2021, it's an awesome course. You learn how to judge barbecue, like different criteria. And yeah, I just love it. It's a great community. It's a great experience. It's fun. It's exciting. It's a lot more serious than I thought it was going to be. So
Oh. And are there prerequisites to being a barbecue competition judge? Like, do you have to have you have a culinary background. Was that important?
I do have a culinary background. I have my red seal in cooking, but there's no background that you need. And
Okay.
yeah, anybody can just take a course and
Oh,
enjoy some good barbecue.
nice.
This
Hmm.
this is like a whole new community that we're being introduced to right now. I didn't really personally realize that I've heard about this in the States and in Kansas and Texas. There's very strong barbecue communities, and it makes sense that it would be here too because we have such great local beef in Alberta. So that's really cool that this community exists.
Yeah, it is.
And so is it through a culinary school or that sort of program, or is it just like a club? How would you describe?
It's a 1 day course that I took.
Okay.
It is through the Kansas City Barbeque Association.
Hmm.
Okay.
So they have representatives that put on the course. I should have went back for the second day for the table captain course, which I'm probably going to do this year because there's different things you can do while judging barbecue. It's not just sitting down and eating. There's all kinds of different jobs when it comes to barbecue competition judging, and
Oh.
I'm hopefully going to see some different stuff this year. And I want to do that table captain. I don't think it's going to be as fun because you're not judging the barbecue itself. So
Mm.
What does the table captain do?
the table captain will open up each box and then present it to the judges so they can first judge on appearance. So sometimes you'll see like a small piece of tin foil,
Mm.
and so it's a table captain's job to take care of anything like that and just dealing with anything that may pop up.
Oh, cool.
So how do you learn to judge the flavor of something? Isn't that kind of subjective? Like, doesn't everybody have a different thing they like? Or is it like based on the Kansas City barbecue style, you're looking for these qualities, whether it's your favorite quality or not?
That's part of the oath where you have to judge it subjectively and objectively. And that's probably the hardest part because the taste is one thing. Like you base it on 3 criteria. It's appearance, taste, and texture, like the how tough it is or soft it is. So, but that taste is hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is where my culinary background comes in to help me out because I've tasted a lot of stuff in my career that I don't like. Like, I'm not a huge seafood fan, but the amount of seafood chowders I've had over the years, I know it's a good seafood chowder. I know it's not a good seafood chowder.
Right, right.
So what I do is I try to get a taste of for what they are trying to present. I try to take a couple bites out of each piece. So if one piece is really peppery and one piece isn't, maybe they didn't season it properly.
Mm.
But yeah, taste is a weird thing because in different states have different flavor profiles that the judges like.
That is so interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, how does that come about? It's just a regional tradition of how things are cooked, or?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if you took your Kansas City barbecue down to Texas and continue with your Kansas City barbecue flavors, you're probably not going to get marked as high as you would, say, in Kansas City. So those different regions. So
is there like a regional sort of flavor in Alberta?
I don't think it's too unique here in Alberta.
Okay.
I think it's more of the salt and pepper on it. That's my feelings about it.
Interesting.
And it's not overly spicy, but it has like a nice little kick to it. It all depends on the meat you get too.
Right.
Because the chicken is a lot saucier. Same as the ribs, they have a lot more sauce on them. But when you get into the pulled pork, it's less sauce and more dry rubs. And same as the brisket, there is some sauce on it. It all depends on the meat. And I find some of those sauces are kind of sweet on the sweet side, like most barbecue sauces are. So it's messy. I go through a lot of napkins and, or no, a paper towel because we don't use napkins. We only use paper towel.
Oh,
and
okay.
it's kind of weird on the background, but yeah, there's crackers and paper towel and your water bottle. They give you water because you're not allowed to take in your own drinks. So it's all bottled water and you have to lay it on its side so it's not tipped up in case it pours over and everything. So there are little rules like that I've learned, and it's interesting. And one of the things that I really appreciate is when somebody will go out on a limb and go for something different. So
I imagine it all starts to taste a little bit the same. So it'd be nice if somebody mixed it up, even though they might be taking a chance on not doing as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what it is, because I think a lot of people are used to the same flavors, especially as judges. We're just getting the same flavors over and over again. That's why I said I appreciate it, and especially chicken. a lot of people do chicken thighs, bone in, skin on chicken thighs, because it's the juiciest part.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy when somebody will do a different piece of chicken, whether it's breast or chicken legs.
Okay, yeah.
I've seen a couple times where people have Frenched the chicken legs, so that's pretty neat, and I like that.
What's Frenched?
So you take all the meat off the bone, and you like push it down to the bottom part.
Oh, is that like those lollipop things?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, okay. Okay. I didn't know that was Frenched.
Chicken lollipop sounds a lot more fun, right?
Yeah.
Frenched is so fancy.
So Ryan had told us, in terms of being a competitor, that the chicken is the absolute worst because the prep on that chicken is such a pain to do, because you have to actually take the skin off, scrape the fat off the underside of it, and then put it back on the chicken. So your prep ahead of time is like really labor intensive, and so nobody wants to make chicken.
That's interesting. I've never competed,
Ooh.
so it's something I want to do. I'll probably try to join a team within the next couple of years. I'm thinking about doing backyard this year. Backyard competition is an amateur competition, and you only usually do chicken and ribs. So
Okay.
And just anybody can
do the master competition like Ryan has done. I do barbecue at home. I just don't think my ribs are not up to par yet, and I know my chicken is not there yet. So I think I do all right in brisket, and I don't think I'd place. I'm not saying I come in and sweep the competition by any means, but
hey, you never know.
Maybe. But I know what I make, and I'm one of my harshest critics, and people say it's great, but I know what I've had in competition, and I don't think I'm there yet.
Right.
But,
well, of course, as a professional judge, you're going to judge yourself probably along some of the same standards.
Yeah.
Hard to measure up to your own experiences with judging.
And I know what Ryan said about chicken, and it is hard. I was lucky enough to be sitting beside a person who is a competitor, and she competed the previous month in Invermere, and she had a perfect mark on chicken. So I was getting some tips and tricks from her on how to cook chicken. So
when you're at these competitions, do you get a chance to go around and see what they're doing and how they're cooking it? Is there something that you've learned from judging that you've brought back home and has sort of changed your barbecuing at home?
Definitely.
Oh, that sounds fun. You get to wander around and see.
Yeah. So these events are usually open to the public. So you will see people walking around. People have been encouraged, like the judges have been encouraged to see what's going on the barbecue side. When I do, I don't say I'm a judge. Unless I see Ryan and I wave to him, but I usually don't talk to him about what he's putting on his chicken or ribs. I don't want to know any of the competitors, what they're putting out.
Right.
Because as a judge, I didn't want to influence myself. I don't want to be unfairly like, oh, I know that's his chicken.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to influence myself in any way like that.
Right.
I'll talk to people afterwards for sure. And some of the questions that they'll ask me is, how was the barbecue today? And I always just say, oh, some of it was good and some of it was even gooder. But yeah, like, because it's always great barbecue and even greater barbecue. Like, there's nothing that I would say like, oh my God, that's horrible, and I never eat that again. So
well, yeah, I mean, I would think most people who are confident enough to go in a competition setting have probably barbecued so much that they've got something going on. At least they know what they're doing to some extent, right?
Yeah, exactly. One of the questions I often ask for ribs is, do you pull the skin off the back of them? Or it's not skin, but
well, they call it that.
Membrane.
Yeah, the membrane.
They call it silver skin or something.
Yeah. I've been doing my own research, and when I was a younger cook, I pulled that membrane off when I was doing my ribs because that's what I was showing. But then I was told on another side, well, if you keep that membrane in, it'll keep some more of that moisture in there. So I've never had a rib in a competition where it's like, oh, that has a membrane on it, I better mark that down. Or it's the same as beef. Like, should you leave your beef out before you cook it to get it warm in the center? I saw an interesting thing about that. But if you want that charred crust on the outside, you want it to cook longer. So if your meat is already up to temperature and you want that medium rare with a nice crust, then it's going to be less cooking on the outside. But if it's already cold in the middle, taking it from the fridge, and then you build up that crust even longer because it's cold in the middle and it's taking more time to cook in the inside. So,
I never thought about that.
yeah, neither did I until I saw it. And I'm like, that makes a lot more sense. Like,
Totally makes sense. I'm learning things already.
That must be interesting to contrast against what you've been taught, right?
yeah, it is. But they'll tell you in cooking school that you're going to learn a lot more in the real world than in school. So,
Right.
a lot of these barbecue teams, they're professional barbecuers, I would say, but they don't always have that culinary background. Some of them do. And I've met some people that said, yeah, I have my red seal. And
Right.
There's small things that I notice. So,
Yeah, that's interesting. Do they teach barbecue at culinary school typically?
when I was there, no. But
Okay.
last year, when I was at Barbecue on the Bow, I was not just judging, but I was the MC for the event. So I was announcing all the winners. And Nate puts in a barbecue team. So that's Northern.
Alberta Institute of Technology.
Yeah. So they put in a team every year, I do believe, and I think they do a couple different competitions. I think they were at
cool.
Porkapalooza last year as well, so I've seen them around. I would have loved to do something like that when I was in culinary school, so congratulations to them. And they placed as well. They got their name called a couple times when I was doing the MCing. So,
Oh, cool. So you mentioned that you specifically get paper towel, not napkins, and that you get crackers and water. Is there anything else that you get to sort of like clean your palate?
No,
That's it.
they just use the crackers to
Okay.
cleanse the palate. So you're not allowed to use forks. It's all with your hands. So rule one,
Oh.
no licking your fingers.
It's messy business. It's probably nice if everyone hasn't licked their fingers first.
Exactly. Yeah. So that is stressed a couple of times, probably more than a
Right.
couple.
Do you also like not eat for the day before or something? Like, how do you have room for all that?
It's interesting because, like I said, the table captain will come around and present you with 6 containers of chicken and then 6 containers of ribs and 6 containers of pork and then 6 containers of brisket, and then you take a portion of each. So it's usually just taking a bite or two out of the chicken and moving on to the next piece.
It just still sounds like it would be a lot.
It is a lot. And if you want to take some home afterwards, you can take whatever you want home. Like, your cooler has to fit underneath your chair. There's some interesting little quirky rules that are fun.
Right.
Yeah. And the fact that you can't bring in your own drinks, because wouldn't it just be great to have a beer with that barbecue?
Yes.
That's the first thing I thought. I'm like, all that water is good, but
well, it all comes so quickly at you too. The barbecue teams, and I don't know how much Ryan touched on it, but it's half hours in between each meat. So those turn-in times, like, you get your first chicken, and then a half hour later you get your ribs, and a half hour later you get your pork, and then a half hour later you get your brisket. So it's pretty quick on the turnaround. So it's like a double blind judging. So
Okay.
but you get like these judging mats, I guess is the best way to describe it.
Okay.
Each mat has 6 squares, so you take, and then you put your meats on each square so you can judge it on your scorecard.
Oh, okay. How many people are there, and what's sort of the demographics going on that judging table?
Well, there's 6 people at each table.
Okay.
And there's usually about 36 judges for 36 teams.
wow, that's a lot of teams and a lot of judges.
Yeah.
So now it makes more sense where all the meat's going. Okay.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
but yeah. So 6 judges at each table. That's how it's scored. So I think the perfect size event is 36 teams, 36 judges. I think Barbecue on the Bow was a little bit bigger than that. There's a lot going on.
It's a really big operation now that,
yeah,
like my mind is opening up a lot more to what this might look like. Very cool.
It sounds fun. Erin, we need to attend a barbecue.
I've already written
competition
down
this
a
summer.
couple of the names that Avery's mentioned.
Porkapalooza sounds pretty fun.
Right?
Just the
That's
name
a
is
great
fun.
name.
Porkapalooza is an awesome name, and unfortunately it's not called Porkapalooza anymore. They changed the name this year. But I'm still going to call it Porkapalooza. I'm like that old person now that when the store has changed name, you keep on calling it the original store name.
There's no change. No changing around here.
Yeah. But it's hard to keep a straight face when you're trying to be serious and you're saying, you put Porkapalooza in the middle of that.
Yeah.
But it's part of the fun of it too. Like, it's fun, but also very serious.
Right.
And the teams are taking it very seriously.
Oh, yes.
Right?
They definitely are.
Yeah. People can win money and like make a living off it, can't they?
Possibly in the States where there's a lot more
Hmm.
competitions.
Or you get
And,
sponsorships or something. I think
yeah.
Ryan told us about that.
Yeah.
And it depends how many kids you have too, because there's all kinds of kids running around. It's definitely a family event.
That sounds awesome.
But that's a great thing because you see kids competing at these competitions because they have a kids queue as well.
Oh, no
fun.
way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so fun. So
Yeah.
our barbecue season here is pretty seasonal, I'm assuming, for competitions.
Yeah.
Or does it run all year long?
Porkapalooza will be kicking off in late May. I forget the exact date, but it's around my anniversary, so I prioritize Porkapalooza over my anniversary now.
Avery.
But yeah, and Barbecue on the BOGO is Labor Day long weekend. So there's competitions in between there.
Oh, okay.
And I think there was a winter competition, Saskatchewan somewhere, but I forget where.
How many competitions can you hit?
As far as I know, and there's probably more because I think it slowed down after the pandemic. There's the Edmonton one, and then there's one in Lethbridge, Didsbury, Bassano. There's one in Invermere as well.
Okay.
I think that's a newer one, but there still might be competitions that I don't know about. It probably depends on how far you want to travel.
Right.
Because we're pretty close to Montana as well, so there's probably competitions there.
True enough.
There's other competitions besides the master competition that goes like at these events, like they call them auxiliary events. So I talked about the kids queue, the backyard amateur. The main competition goes on Sunday, but usually the auxiliary events go on Saturdays. And they had a honey event, wide open competition, anything they wanted to make. And it was sponsored by honey producers of Alberta or something like that. So they got all the honey given to them.
That's cool. I like that.
Everything was obviously sweet, but there was some meats, there was some desserts. It was a little bit of everything. So like Alberta has the Alberta Cup. So they take all the scores from Porkapalooza, Bassano, Didsbury, and Calgary. So those 4 events, all 4 of those scores, and whoever has the highest score wins the Alberta Cup. So
nice.
Oh, cool. So each season, the teams are sort of competing in individual competitions, but the overall consistency of their product or what they make. Oh,
exactly.
That's really
You'd have
cool.
to go to all those 4 events.
Yeah, at least those 4. So I see the same people at every event. So I'm starting to get to know some people,
Right.
And it's such a community.
Yeah.
Ryan talked a lot about barbecue bringing people together, and it's a real community-driven kind of interest that people have.
It definitely is, because even on the competition side, yes, you want to do better than that person beside you. You see a lot of these older teams, they'll help out a newer team, like giving them hints and tricks and stuff. And because they want to make sure those people are coming back as well, because they want to have the bigger the event, the funner it is. Because without that community support from the teams, we wouldn't be able to judge. So
yeah, fantastic. We're going to come back and we're going to dig a little bit deeper on ribs. Hello, everyone. This is Erin. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. We hope you are enjoying our conversation with Avery Cochrane, Alberta barbecue judge and the host of 90s Tunes podcast. We are always on the lookout for knowledgeable, fun, and interesting people like Avery to talk with on the show. If you or someone you know has a fascinating story or a food specialty they want to share with us, click the link in our show notes or email us at 3kitchenspodcast@gmail.com for more information. We can't wait to meet our next amazing guest. Now, back to our conversation with Avery.
Here we are, back to talk about ribs. And one thing you said earlier, Avery, was about the silver skin on the back of the ribs. And I just wanted to come back to that real quick because I have always taken that off and I thought you were supposed to take it off. So when you said maybe you don't, I'm like, wait, what? Now I'm confused. And I'm like, should I, shouldn't I? But I mean, it's nice when there's not a definitive, you're not ruining your meal if you leave it on or you don't or whatever. I like hearing that there's just different styles to do it. So I appreciate that.
And I know some people will yell at me for saying, don't take it off. And I know how easy it is to take off. It's just like slip a knife and pull it with a towel and it's done. And if you're doing 4 or 5 racks of ribs at home, yeah, it's easy. I've worked in restaurants where we're not just doing 4 or 5 racks of ribs. We're doing 4 or 5 boxes of ribs. So those are 20-pound boxes. Do you have time for that? And yeah,
right.
It is what it is.
I can see how that would be a lot. Yeah, the prep And if you don't need to, then
So that's why I say I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. And yeah, somebody's going to say, well, Avery's wrong. And some people might say Avery's right, but it's all depends on what you want to do. And I think that's the great thing about cooking, that it's very subjective and everybody has their own way of doing it.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's why I don't watch a lot of cooking videos anymore, because people just sit there and judge what somebody else is doing because they're not doing it that other person's way. But
Mhm. Just don't read the comments. You can still watch the videos.
yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I do like making ribs. I don't know how other people do them, but I just make my own rub, and I've been making this rub for years, and I've added stuff to it and I've taken away from it, but it's pretty simple. It's a basic rub.
Okay.
And I have to make it for my dad every year. And I send it through the mail. I send them
nice.
rub to Nova Scotia. But yeah, I just use like smoked paprika, regular paprika, some brown sugar, garlic powder, onion powder, cumin. What else do I put there? Salt and pepper and Cajun pepper. And some cinnamon. Yeah, and oregano. Yeah, so it's pretty basic. I've made one where I put coffee in there as well. So that's the thing. And
pork ribs or beef ribs?
I love both. So,
okay, you'll do either or.
Yeah, so if I'm doing the pork ribs, I use that. If I'm doing beef ribs, they can take a little bit more flavor to them. So I just usually crack on a whole bunch of pepper to it at the beginning, and then I use my rub on that because they're a little bit thicker and I just want to put more flavor into them.
Do you do the thing where you salt it and let it rest ahead of time?
No, I just usually get them maybe not that far ahead of time. Probably I'll get my meat ready, then I'll get my fire ready, like I'll get my coals ready, and then in that amount of time they're sitting there soaking in the rub. But sometimes I'll brine my ribs. Just working on some different recipes. And
cool.
And I should write down what I do. And I know a lot of barbecue teams write down what they do every time, so if they get a good score they can recreate that.
Yeah.
Right.
But I don't, and I should, because sometimes my ribs turn out better than other times, and I'm like, what did I do there?
Right.
So
don't you feel like you need a scribe with you? Because
yes,
when you're working in the kitchen, your hands are always a mess. You're always doing too much stuff, and you're like, I should really write this down. And then I'm just like standing there like this, like, no, fuck it, can't do this now.
Well, you think you'll remember too, and then you realize you don't remember.
Yes. I should get my wife to do it, but I think I put enough on her already that. But she does like when I do barbecue, so maybe it's part of being the barbecue process for her.
A little bit of work to eat the great barbecue.
Right? Yeah.
I've never cooked beef ribs before. I don't know about Heather. Have you?
I tend to do pork ribs.
I tend to just do pork ribs because that's what I find or see. So is there a specific technique that we should know about?
I've done pork ribs, and that's what I've done most of.
Okay.
And so usually when I do those, I'll about 4 hours-ish. It all depends on how they look, and put my rub on there. And like sometimes I just use a barbecue sauce and like put some more, usually beer into it, so it mops on a little bit easier and it's not so thick. Or I'll just go like apple cider vinegar and just spray it on. Or peach juice. I like peach juice. But I usually use that in my pork butts. So I'll inject peach juice into my pork butts.
This sounds interesting.
But,
and then are you putting those ribs on direct heat or indirect?
Indirect heat. So I usually use an offset smoker, and whatever your preference is. And so that's what I use, because I made bacon one time, or I tried to make bacon one time, and I had it on my smoker, and I think it was a little bit too hot, and I didn't have a deflection plate at the bottom. So all the fat just dripped down and caused a big fire.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Oops.
So I switched to an offset stick burner after that, and I like that. So that's what I use. And whatever you're comfortable with, I'm sure there's teams out there that use drum smokers, and probably teams that use stick smoker and have great results too. So
are competitors bringing their barbecues to the competition?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know why I didn't realize that before.
No wonder you wouldn't just do it on your own. Not just because the cooking, but like you got to bring all your.
You got to transport all your stuff.
You do.
Your meat.
People
all right.
bring their trailers with them, whether it's like a fifth wheel or some people get there Friday night, either Saturday night, the competition, you don't turn in your meats till Sunday. So you have to have a place to sleep. And
right. Yeah.
fun.
Next time we're at your house. No, I'm just kidding. If we were to peek in your backyard, do you have like a number of like a grill and a smoker and like do you have
how many cooking apparatus?
Well, I have my regular propane barbecue, and then I have my pizza oven that goes on top of that. I have my little outdoor hand sink, so I don't have to go inside and outside. And then I have my offset smoker, and then I have my homemade smoker that I made a couple years ago. And yeah, that's about it.
And your yard is full.
We have a little pergola, and I keep my regular barbecue there, and if I'm ever smoking, it's on wheels, so I just roll it down and have it under a pergola because then it's nice and shaded. And if it's windy, I close the curtains, so I'm in my own little outdoor shelter, and it's comfortable. Like last year I smoked out in the rain and had my own little living room kitchen area, and it was nice. My wife wasn't out there. yes, it definitely was. So
all you need is like a little fridge with your drinks in it.
You got a cooler.
I thought about that. I do have a bar fridge in the house, and I thought about taking that out, but I didn't.
Lena said, okay, calm down.
Well, she gets rid of me for the day, so I'm sure she's happy. We used to have a 14-foot trampoline in the backyard, but we got rid of that.
Sorry,
That's
son.
the way to do it.
No trampolining for you. Dad's got to smoke some ribs.
And I think it's a win-win for everybody. No trampoline, no injuries.
Yeah.
And everybody gets ribs.
I bet he likes to eat them too, so he doesn't mind.
Yeah.
Nice.
So if you don't have a smoker, what would you recommend we would do? Is there a substitute?
It all depends on what you are comfortable with, and this goes back to like me seeing cooking shows. And if you want to boil your ribs for a couple hours or slow cook them, go ahead and do it.
Okay.
If that makes you happy, then do it. If I'm not smoking them, I like to do it slow and low in the oven.
Okay.
I put my oven on probably about 250-ish and do them like I would on a smoker, but in the oven. So just spraying them down every once in a while, put my sauce on.
Okay.
And you're not going to get that smoking flavor, but if you do it right and you're patient and you take your time, and you're going to get decent ribs. So I find cooking is all about what makes you happy. If you want to take a steak and put it in a microwave for 10 minutes, go ahead.
Really, Avery?
I'm not saying I would do that.
Are you suggesting anyone do that?
I would never suggest that, but if that's what makes you happy.
Okay. Let's not encourage that one. That sounds terrible.
It does, but...
And so if you're doing that low and slow cook, do you need to go and sear it afterwards at the end, or?
What I usually do is I put a lot of barbecue sauce on top, whatever your favorite barbecue sauce is. Just broil it so it caramelizes the top.
Okay.
So you get that nice caramelization of the barbecue sauce and the sugars there. So.
Okay. Nice.
That's how I finish mine.
Can you get any of that smokiness or enough of it with the, just with your regular gas barbecue and those pellets that you can get?
I've never done it. When I worked in a kitchen, we did smoked chicken. We use a big hotel pan, and I put a little container of water in the bottom and a whole bunch of smoking chips, and then put chicken in another pan that's all perforated and shallow. Put that on top, covered in tin foil, and cooked it for about 15 minutes, and it got that nice smoky flavor in there. It's just a little hack. I wouldn't say it's as good as smoking it for a couple hours on low heat, but it did the job. So.
I really got to go find these chips at one of these stores and try this out. This is my
Barbecues galore. That's where I get mine. They have chunks, they have chips.
And all the smokers.
There's different options. You can definitely, different ways you can smoke. If you just are getting into it and you just want to have that smoke, you can get a Traeger or Pit Boss or whatever, and it takes the pellets and you set it at 250 and put your meat on and just walk away, because it's going to keep that temperature at 250 and it's going to continuously add those pellets, so you don't have to do anything. You might want to check your pellets halfway through or something, but if that's what you want to do, then awesome, go for it. I just prefer just being outside and using that stick burner and keeping an eye on the heat, and just gives me something to do.
So it's a bit more technique to it. It's kind of like cooking over a fire, where you have to maintain your coals and the proper heat and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you never really put that stick down when you're around the fire. You're always kind of adjusting things here and there, and
or moving coals around and stuff.
It's fun to have that experience rather than just setting it and forgetting it.
Yeah, it is. And that's something we like to do too. Like we have a fire pit in our backyard. We'll
Yeah.
cook sausages out there and toast the buns.
Nice.
It's more of a event than just a meal. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw a video on social media recently. I don't know if it was an alligator or a crocodile. I don't quite know the difference. It was a whole one, and it was over the fire, and they were turning it, and they had other things hanging like pineapples that they were smoking around it, and they had this whole like feast thing going on. Even though the reptile kind of freaks me out a little bit, I'm sure they knew what they were doing, and I bet it was amazing.
Yeah, no kidding.
Now, would you try that alligator?
I would try it.
Oh,
if
yeah.
I totally would try it. Yeah, I'm sure it tastes like chicken.
It's
going to
tough.
say, what's the meat? Is it a red meat or a white meat?
It's a white meat.
That's why I think it tastes like chicken.
Oh yeah, because it's a reptile, chicken.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Ding. Okay, I've connected all the dots.
It was a bird at one time, or vice versa. I don't know.
I've had it a couple times, and it was all right.
Not
Right
your
home
favorite.
about. So
Yeah, it looked cool, and it looked like a really fun party they had going on there. So if you've got or you have a suckling pig or something over the fire, and you've got friends over, and you're kind of tending to it.
nice. That sounds good.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, the best part is always the experience, and usually the food turns out pretty good if you're just sitting around all day focused on that and
drinking. By the
and
time
conversing
you eat,
and
you're so hungry, and you've been drinking all afternoon that it's probably going to taste good no matter what.
Yeah.
right? Well, thank you so much for coming today to talk to us and teach us about the judges' side of barbecue competitions. I think I have a way better perspective on just how big, and I mean, I assume it just gets bigger the more south you go into the States.
One of my dreams is to go to the American Royal. That is a 400 plus team event.
Wow. Is that a Kansas City
Yeah.
barbecue?
Yeah.
Wow.
Whoa.
That's amazing.
Yes.
I can't even imagine how you would find the space to do. Is it like an entire farmer's field or?
It is in the infield of a racetrack.
Oh,
Wow. That's very cool.
you don't have to chase your meat down to before you.
The rodeo's the week before.
The rodeo's the week before. Okay.
Oh no. Oh boy. Oh.
Sorry.
Well, this is fun. And hopefully our listeners have learned how they can bring this experience back home, and like a few tips for making ribs or whatever you want to do. I want people to try this thing where you take the skin off the chicken and put it back on and tell us how it turns out. Cool. I want people to try that and then tell us how it goes.
Well, I got some ribs in my freezer that I've been picking up on the discount shelf, as I like to do. And I think it's going to be ribs night one of these days.
Ribs-a-palooza
Nice.
at Erin's house.
Yeah.
Rib fest.
Rib fest.
Rib
There we
fest
go.
at the Walker house. Yes.
There we go.
Nice. Well, we wish you a very fun and delicious barbecue judging season. Hope you get to go to all the places and eat all the best food.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think I will. So
Yeah. Take Lena. Make sure she gets some of the leftovers at least.
I've been bugging her for years to take this barbecue competition judging course, but she hasn't yet. So, but she comes along. She'll come to Edmonton with me, and she just does her own thing while I go judge.
Nice.
We should ask you to tell our listeners where to find you and follow you.
Yes.
Maybe tell us how they can find your new podcast.
My new podcast is called 90s Tunes, and I do it with my wife, Lena. We used to have the Mess Hall podcast, which was a food-based podcast, but I'm really excited about this new one. We're just going back and listening to CDs from the 90s when we were younger, and we're not rating them or anything. We're just giving them, we re-listen to it and just bringing us back to that moment in life when we first heard it or comes to mind when we were listening to it. Like we started out with Big Shiny Tunes 2. We have Alanis Morissette, Jagged Little Pill that we're listening to. Wayne's World soundtrack because that's one of my favorite movies from the 90s. Metallica, the Black Album. So we're getting a little bit of everything. We're quite excited. We have our first 6 CDs planned out. We don't know where we're going after that, but I have a couple surprises because we agreed on the first 6, and then after that, we're going to take picks at who gets to pick a CD. And I have
that'll
some
be fun.
weird surprises for my wife that I don't think she'll see coming. So
I'm sure it's fun to see if it still holds up. Like if you still love it as much as you used to love it,
Yeah.
but you've just kind of forgotten about it for a while, or are you going to go like, oh, why did we like this?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, well, that sounds fun. I can't wait to listen.
Yeah.
We're going to be listening to some one-hit wonders coming up. So
Oh,
listen to that whole
good.
CD and maybe see why it was a one-hit wonder.
Yeah. What was wrong with the rest of the album?
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's really fun.
So now for your backyard barbecue, you can get a good playlist of 90s tunes from 90s Tunes Podcast.
Awesome.
Everybody go find it wherever you listen to podcasts and go and listen to Avery and Lena talking about 90s tunes.
Awesome.
Well, as always, thank you so much, Avery, for joining us. This is so much fun.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on again. It was great.
And now for the fine print. Join us over on the socials, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Pinterest, and on our website at threekitchenspodcast.com. And remember, when you like, follow, subscribe, and review, it helps more people find us. Thank you so much for listening.
I'm sure I upset some people by saying microwave your steak.
You upset me.